So is King Charles going to take Meghan and Harry back? Will he take his son back after his Netflix docuseries, after his book? What is going on? So my name's Deanna and I'm from Hot for History, where we typically discuss very interesting historic facts. And we are covering with the royal family because right now we are watching history in the making with a coronation coming very soon in May, and the fact that we are seeing a shift in the monarchy, which has gone back thousands and thousands of years. So once again, will King Charles take back Harry and Meghan? There was an article out today about Harry being interviewed on 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper and what he had to say about him wanting to go back to his brother and his dad and to reconcile somewhat. So I wanted to basically chat a little bit with you about some of these articles. So apparently, Harry and Meghan and Charles, like there's all this buzz out there. Are they going to get back together? Will they reconcile? There's been so much drama. A lot of the people in England, especially, are like, hell no, take their titles away. No, 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 no such luck. They are not going to, want to take them back. So I wanted to kind of run through some theories that some people are having. Like, why haven't we heard more? Why haven't we heard more from, the king? So I wanted to kind of run through that with you. There was an article in Marie Claire, which says King Charles is playing a rather clever long game when it comes to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, which is basically silence. In a nutshell, that could be the article. He's just keeping his mouth shut. So when it comes to the response to the Harry and Meghan docuseries, the royal family has just been silent. That is their theory. That is what they typically do. Now, I will say that even though I know that, their theory and their whole motto is to keep quiet, I feel like Charles is, he gets triggered easily. So I also am surprised that he kind of has said nothing. But this article basically says, we kind of go into the fact that no one's silence is felt more than King Charles. He hasn't spoken, even though there's this claim that he said things that just weren't true, as Harry said in one of the episodes. I can't remember which one. And do you remember where he said, oh yeah, and then my grandmother just sat back and listened and believed everything. So there's this historian, David Starkey, and he said this in the Mirror, that the monarch is playing a clever long game with Harry and Meghan, including not mentioning them at all in his first ever Christmas speech. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but during his speech, he just he talked about his mother and his father, and then Will and Kate, but he did not run through this. So his silence, like he didn't even mention it, even though when he became the king, he did mention, all the best for my son and his wife in California. So we've got the coronation coming. He's been really quiet, and so people are asking a lot of questions. But this is why I went live tonight. I wasn't going to go live because I was like planning some other history content, but I had to respond. So Harry today said, and I think that this is just a teaser because everybody wants, 60 Minutes wants you all to watch the show, because before his book is released, he's going to be interviewed with Anderson Cooper I believe this Sunday. So he says, I want my dad and brother back. Harry's hoping to mend the deep rift with his family, and he says he's pleading harmony with them, even as he and Meghan very publicly air their grievances. Now, Harry talks a lot about gaslighting. He's like, oh, there's this institutional gaslighting that goes on. But in my opinion, he does so much gaslighting. I mean, gaslighting's definition of kind of blaming other people for things that you do. So he's always talking about them gaslighting. And I'm sure that they do. I feel like both sides it's confusing on both sides. But, he talks about that. But then he also says that he wants to get back with them, but he has all these conditions. So he's opening up about his feud on this show that will be with Anderson Cooper, because he's releasing Spare. And he says he wants his father and brother back in his life. And he says he doesn't believe things had to go down the way they did. Harry claims that his family's been to blame for big issues, saying they continue to paint Meghan and him as the villains. He also claims King Charles and Prince William have given zero sign that they want to reconcile. Okay. I do think, I mean, you guys give me your opinion, but it is kind of always like, okay, Meghan did this and Meghan did that. I think Harry, could take, things. I mean, he could be responsible for the stuff too. And stops his, then maybe I think Charles might give a little empathy to, yeah, I agree. Meghan is the problem. Let me see. It says Meghan's the problem. That all should be the issue, So, I mean, I do think a lot of people blame her for things a lot. But I mean, it's very interesting to watch this. Okay, so he says, so the Duke of Sussex also chatted with Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes. And obviously this is a teaser. This is a way to promote it, for him to make this statement. It's not coincidental that he's making this bold statement. I want my dad and brother back. And they take that, because it's all also pre-recorded. They take that, they send it out to the media. So we will all watch. We'll watch Anderson Cooper, and then we'll buy the book, and then he'll make millions. And that's the whole plan, because that's how it is. So he says things would end up leaking. He's tried to deal with internal issues privately, he says, but it always ends up getting leaked, making him look like the bad guy. And he's repeating his allegations that Buckingham Palace fed info to media outlets behind the scenes, then played the no comment card publicly. And I think that's probably true. But it's sort of like the game in media. That's kind of what they do, right? So he is, hold on. Let me see. He is, because he's been with psychological. But you know what I want to know? I want to know if the reason why people, and a lot of us think that way, you start to think that it's all Meghan's fault. It's because the media is trying to create this narrative, right? Like, it can't be Harry. And the other thing, Harry's so likable. So, I don't know. I don't know if it's all Meghan. I tend to really like the royal family. I lean toward, tradition. But I also want to say that when I think about this a lot, I think, how do you change things? How do you really make things different in a new monarchy, unless you're willing to really make change? I mean, Queen Elizabeth has died. There is going to be a shift. Things are going to be dramatic and different. In years past, and this is why I cover this stuff, even though I like to cover history first, but sometimes, and it's very rare, it's like modern times pulls out history, and because we're watching history in the making, we're watching a new monarchy, and we're watching things. So in years past, brother to brother, they would just go about killing each other. Like, they would battle on the battlefield, and now media is that battlefield. Okay, so his book is coming out, I believe, on the 10th. His memoir will be available on January 10th in print and digital. And then it says, Spare takes readers immediately back to one of the most searing images of the 20th century. Two young boys, two princes, walking behind their mother's coffin as the world watched in sorrow and horror, the publisher said in a statement. As Diana, Princess of Wales, was laid to rest, billions wondered what the princess must be thinking and feeling, and how their lives would play out from that point on. I mean, that's really true. I mean, we would want to know that. It's interesting to try to find that information out. We all were like shocked when we watched that, if you guys can remember, but even seeing a recording of it now, if you weren't, old enough to really remember, it was, I mean, he says that it was so hard. He had to meet and greet people, shake their hands, of all these people crying, throwing flowers at him. And yet he had to walk like a man behind his mom's coffin, and they could have done things differently. I don't think he really knew how to grieve. And that's what he talks about. For Harry, this is his story at last. with its raw, unflinching honesty. Spare is a landmark publication full of insight, revelation, self-examination, and hard-won wisdom about the eternal power over love and greed. Okay, so back to my question, which was kind of the title of this video. Will King Charles, is he going to take them back? I don't think we know, for sure, but I have my opinions, which I'll give you in a second. Hold on. Whether Harry carries a title or not, Harry will always be Charles' son and William his brother. Look at Wallis. She married Edward. Edward renounced the crown. Harry only renounced duties. Exactly. I mean, I think that's a really great point. And honestly, even if they take the Sussex title away from him, you can't take the prince. I mean, maybe you could tell people to stop calling him prince, but he is a prince. He is born of royalty and he is a royal. That's what he is. It's not like all of a sudden he isn't a prince anymore. So, I mean, it's very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I don't know. Okay, so we'll talk about the king in a second too. But during Meghan and Harry's entire, docuseries, we were all wondering, we're like, hey, are they going to allow them to go to the coronation? Like, when's the royal family going to say something? They're not going to say anything. Some people think Charles is playing a long game. I feel like if anybody is going to freak out over anything that he says, it's going to be Charles. Charles freaked out over a pen leaking on his hand. I don't know if he's learned the composure that Queen Elizabeth had. She just had this composure, but it does say that he will invite. This announcement was made after the docuseries was released. So they will be invited to the coronation in spite of the couple's new docuseries containing fresh attacks on the royal family. Buckingham insiders told the Daily Mail that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex can expect invitations. Harry is the son of His Majesty, will always love him while things are difficult at the moment. The door will always be left ajar, one insider said. Another said it would be unlikely for the invitation to be rescinded in the coming months, even with the release of Harry's memoir. The palace told the outlet that the guest list for the coronation hadn't been compiled. Harry and Meghan made a plethora of allegations in the Netflix series. So the big question that I was getting at in the very beginning was, what do you think about King Charles? Is he going to take him back? I personally think 1,000%, without a doubt, that he is not going to cut his son off in any way. Possibly they would maybe take the Sussex title away from them. But I think that as triggered as he gets, I think he's also a softie. He's an artist at heart. I don't know if you guys know this about King Charles, but he is an artist. Like, he does all these oil paintings and that. He's a sensitive guy. He's not like this rough and tumble, tough guy. And so I think he's very emotional. That's why we see anger outbursts at times. But I think at the end of the day, he really is. I think he totally 1,000% will take them back. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Oh gosh. Okay, let's talk about this. Diana and Charles were going to have her by the damage caused by leaking tampon gate. People have short memories. So yeah, I don't know if you guys saw, I did do a short about the sex tapes that they had, the tampon gate, where he's Charles is talking to Camilla, saying all these things. And, it was pretty searing and pretty hot. Not exciting hot, but just too much. It's just too much. So here's a couple of other controversial things. I just released a video a couple of hours ago about Camilla, who will be called Queen. She will be called the Queen. She's going to be crowned the Queen. Now, there was an author named Christopher Anderson who wrote a book called The King. And yes, Matthew, Camilla was known as being somebody who was very snobby, but he wrote a book called The King. So for years, the queen was adamant. She's like, I will never, ever, ever agree to you calling her the queen or queen consort. After all, your father, by the way, Prince Philip, was very, very royal. I didn't even get him the king consort title. So your wife, you've been divorced, you had an affair, she's going to be princess consort, just like it was Prince Philip. However, Chris Anderson had this book, and again, this is alleged, where he says, and I went through this briefly in my short, and I will have a full video on this. Chris Anderson said that when Andrew was in trouble at the beginning of 2022 in February, there was they call it a quid pro quo, where Andrew had to be bailed out with like $12 million to settle a lawsuit. Never said he was guilty or anything like that, but they wanted to settle the lawsuit, and mommy, the queen, was going to give money for Andrew's thing. The money would be coming out of the inheritance, which involved Charles's inheritance as well. So it is alleged, Christopher Anderson said in the book, The King, that the reason why she is going to be called queen consort is because Charles agreed for his mom, the queen, to take the money, his inheritance, and give it to the queen, give it to Andrew to settle his lawsuit, with the agreement that she will change her mind and call Camilla the queen, because he did not want to insult his wife by calling her princess consort or princess. I don't know if any of that's true, but I am just telling you. So I'm reading this. Absolutely not. Everything I've done in the moniker. Can Prince Charles be king after his divorce? Yes, he is going to be king after the divorce. Remember, everyone thought Charles was going to be the prince. He bought okay. Yeah. So anyhow, I'm going to say this too. There's a lot of talk about Harry and Meghan, and Harry gets a lot of flack and Meghan gets a lot of flack, and again, I don't like a lot of this, but I've done a lot of lives about this as well. If you just imagine, if you were in the royal family, you're not going to be king ever. And you're sort of limited to asking, for your money, even though they have tons, limited for a lot of different things. And maybe you want a different type of life. How do you go about doing that? So I think that it's like both sides are a little, not at fault, but it's not like the royal family is like smelling like roses either. At all. There's a lot of sketchy stuff, which I mentioned in my last live that I did about Charles and certain things that he did last year that he was accused of, investigations of taking money and all of that. So they make Meghan and Harry, kind of the scapegoat sometimes. And again, I'm not saying that they're perfect. I think they probably could have handled this a lot better. But if you really think about what's going on, nobody else went on and started to talk anymore about Prince Charles, King Charles's charities and him taking money, right? And why? Because everybody's talking about Harry and Meghan, all of that. So I'm just saying that we need to keep an open mind, and we don't really know. So I'm going to kind of end this here. I just wanted to get your opinion. I think personally that Charles will absolutely take Meghan and Harry back, but it's a matter of whether Harry and Meghan want to, because if they are continually used as the scapegoat, when there's so much, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on that we're not always, privy to, and it's sketchy, right? But they're made the scapegoats. And again, I don't think they're perfect. But I think we got to keep that in mind. And you know what? They're basically doing the American thing, even though he's British, coming here, trying to take advantage of whatever he can, make as much money. And in the end, even if they're getting all this negative press, I'm just going to say that they're accomplishing what they wanted to accomplish. They're becoming really famous. People are talking about them, even though they don't like them. Right. So we will see like what really is going on. And just to mention, some of you have asked about my channel. I'm just, I started my channel 10 months ago, just 10 months ago, and I do history mainly. I normally do not cover current events or, gossip or anything like that unless it pertains to this. So one of Ashley was one of the first people on here, and she's like, do more of the history content. And I am. I have a lot of big plans. I really would like for you guys to subscribe if you haven't, and invite other people to subscribe. Because I have a lot of history content that we're going to be doing. And the reason why I'm covering this, though, is because we're living a historic moment. We don't know, really if the monarchy, how much longer they're going to survive. We don't know. They could continue to survive. And it just brings history into current day. So I will continue to cover this. Thank you guys for everything. I will be giving you a lot more stuff, but I felt like I needed to be live tonight after he made that comment. Harry's like, sorry, there's trains outside. I want my brother and my father back. Well, he's also saying all of these things. So it's just a bunch of dysfunction that we're watching. We're watching a man who once was a boy who is greatly grieved and probably hasn't reconciled that. So there's a lot of projection into the media because of that. We're seeing a family battling with the media. We're seeing a very new monarch coming into play. We're seeing a new monarchy. What's going to happen with England? So it brings all of these questions out. So anyhow, we will be talking to you a little bit more. We will be going into deeper dive with history. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. Bye.